Being impulsive in your reactions towards things that you disagree on is not something that is kind of a good idea, let's say. Okay? It's very important that we try not to allow the emotions to control us in our reactions. And the best example I have in mind always is the Prophet, peace be upon him. So, the Prophet, if we just look at one kind of example of a series of incidents that he has experienced and the way he reacted in every incident, you would be very surprised that we are dealing with a wise leader, a leader that is looking for the future of the nation, a leader and a teacher and a father and a brother and so many other things. The Prophet, peace be upon him, is a unique figure. The Muslim world has shown so much love for the Prophet. They love him so much. But the thing, if you love him, we have to imitate him. Imitate him in the way we make decisions, in the way we react. It's not enough to just, say we love him without actually kind of following his path, proper path. So right now I'm going to go over again the 4 incidents that led me to really admire him even further. So let's kind of get to know a little bit about his personality. So the 4 incidents is kind of popular. No one kind of disagrees on it. But kind of people, sometimes they like to generalize one of those incidents and forget about the others. And that's the problem. So I'm going to talk about the first incident, and let's kind of go deep in it to kind of relate to our own lives. So the first incident comes in when you had the Prophet and the companions. They're in a mosque, a very important, place. It's considered the house of Allah. And suddenly an Arabian comes in and goes to the corner and pees that corner. I mean, of course, the companions looked at it. They were so angry, furious. This is an insult. You just insulted us. You have insulted the house of Allah by this behavior. But the Prophet, peace be upon him, immediately told his companions to calm down and leave him alone and let him finish all the way. He actually finished up, and they said, okay, kind of drop into it a bucket of water to dilute that area and bring him to me so I can discuss with him what he has done and make him understand the mistake that he did. Wow, so it's a very interesting incident. Like, you see how the Prophet looked into it. He didn't look at it from a negative perspective. He looked at it in a different perspective on how to deal with that person. Okay, so we'll go back to this incident later on. Second incident. So the Prophet, peace be upon him, they say, he witnessed a man with a golden ring. Yeah, okay, it's bad, okay, but what's the big deal? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, went up to that person, pulled that golden ring and threw it to the side. And he said that this is a sinful thing. And then he went along without even saying anything further. You would say, oh my God, this is like provocative behavior. To just go there, pull the ring and go and just move on? What's going on? But that man, the way he reacted to that, he said to the people, I don't want to see that ring anymore. If the Prophet takes that ring from my hand, I don't want to see it. I don't know anything about it. He looked at it in a very positive way. So the third incident that happened, a man comes in to the Prophet and he tells the Prophet, oh Prophet, can you find me a way to do adultery or fornication or any of that, sinful behavior? You would expect, like, how disrespectful to go to the Prophet and tell him to find the ways. But the Prophet, when he actually sat with the man, he spent a lot of time trying to explain more and more to that person why is it wrong and why we shouldn't do that and so on and so forth. So he was very patient about that person. He didn't get all angry at him. Okay. The fourth incident, so that's a very interesting one because it's in the Quran, right? So the Prophet, peace be upon him, was about to go for an expedition to Tabuk. And the Muslims, all of them has to kind of be part of it unless you have a valid excuse. So they go there and they come back, and then when you have the hypocrites, they have made up their own excuses, they were let go. Only 3 people were actually feeling guilty about the situation, and they actually went to the Prophet. They said, we don't have an excuse for not going for that expedition. So you'd think, oh man, you know what, that's an excellent thing, you know, to come up and to be frank about it, to be honest about it. The Prophet would kind of forgive them for that, you know. But no, the Prophet, peace be upon him, was not, you know, in a happy mood, let's say. And he actually, you know, asked those three men to go to their houses and not leave their houses. And he told everyone else not to greet those three men for an unknown period of time. I'm like, okay, why is it so tough on these guys? Why is he doing that? Anyway, so I mean, the Prophet, and the days has passed, and those three men spend their days in their own houses, praying to their Lord, to Allah, for forgiveness. And the days has passed, 10, 20, and they said up to 40 days, when the Prophet, peace be upon him, got the glad tidings from verses of the Quran that these three men has been forgiven. And he came out with a bright face, a happy smile face like a moon, and he told these men to come back, and he hugged them all, and he asked everyone else to hug those three men back as if nothing has happened. And then the days has moved on. So right now we mentioned 4 incidents, and you see how the Prophet's kind of reputation kind of changes from one incident to another. A very forgiving man, a very kind of provocative person, you know, a very easygoing man, and finally he was very strict on those people who didn't go to, you know, to the expedition. So who is the Prophet, peace be upon him? And that's the key thing. He is a man of wisdom, a man who works for the well-being of his nation. And let's see how. So the way the Prophet looks into things, he looks at men based on their faith in God and the Prophet, that how much faith they have towards that, and how much knowledge they have about what they've done. So the first person that he dealt with, the Arabian man, he had no knowledge or weak knowledge about Islam, and his faith is quite weak. And in that situation, especially with a weak faith, you need to be easygoing with those people, because if you are strict on them, you lose them. Okay, so that's why the first person, he was easygoing. He just sit with them, he explained to them what you have done, and what you've done is wrong, because that's the starting point to slowly get the man interested in the faith and hopefully be faithful again. The second person with the golden ring, the Prophet, peace be upon him, knew that man very well. He know his faith is so strong. You know, the faith, you know, that's too strong that he doesn't really need to explain anything. It's enough that he works in a symbolic way with that man. He acted in a symbolic way because he knows what he will do. It will be only a constructive feedback and not looked at it in a negative way. So if people with faith, with strong faith, you can actually be more strict with those people, because you know that they are already in the right place. The third person is a person who wants to commit adultery and all that. He knows it's wrong, but his faith is weak, and that's why a man with a weak faith, you cannot be hard on those guys, because you're gonna lose them. And a lot of us, we know right and wrong, but our faith is weak. We cannot be strict with those people. The fourth incident, it is the magical one. These men, they know what they've done is wrong, and they're very faithful people. They're very strong believers of God. And because the Prophet knows these three men very well, he has to act in a way, in a smart, wise way, such that if he continues in a very forgiving way, it will allow the hypocrites to kind of work their way through and actually start to rise, you know, in inner problems. So to continue with the task of to maintain that jihad expedition is extremely important. You have to act in a way that will also reflect on the rest of the people, not to think to repeat that mistake again. It's a very confusing thing, but he has to work in a way not only to discipline these three people, but because there's a community witnessing what's happening. So you have to act in a way such that it's, you know, they maintain the importance of jihad moving forward, while the three are actually growing into their faith and connecting everyone else. It's a very confusing, but that's why you need a wise leader who knows how to act and hit like many birds with one stone, you know. Anyway, I don't want to go any deeper on that, but anyway.